All right, it says I'm live. I hope that's true. I see a bunch of people in the chat, so I guess it's working, but the Patreon site was down for a few minutes this morning, so maybe people will trickle in. And in keeping with tradition, I guess I'll do my David Lynch ripoff and do a weather report. It was foggy and raining a little bit this morning between 4 and 8. And now it's just overcast, and I don't know, it's kind of a perfect day, actually. Okay, so hope everyone's doing fine. I have questions here from you guys that you wrote into the comments to the announcement, which was yesterday. Also, there was one question that I didn't get to last week that was a very good question, and I didn't write down who asked it, so I apologize for leaving it out. But the question was, which of the 10 bullets do I think is the most important? And so 10 bullets was do I have a copy of it here? Let me see. 10 bullets was a zine and movie, and the zine was written by Tom Sachs and John Ferguson, and I directed the movie. And it's basically the 10 commandments of working in Tom Sachs's studio, but it's also a very good 10 commandments for working. And so the 10 bullets are: work to code, sacred space, be on time, be thorough, I understand. 6 is get confirmation. Sent does not mean received. 7 is keep a list. 8 is always be knolling. 9 is sacrifice to Leatherface. And 10 is persistence. And the one I think is the most important is number 4, be thorough. Because if you're thorough, then you follow all 10 bullets. And yeah, thoroughness counts. It drives me crazy to pay top dollar and have. Oh, okay. So I didn't pay top dollar, but I had my truck fixed. I had a pretty big job just doing the front end on the Land Cruiser. Replaced wheel bearings, the knuckle seals, the tie rod ends, brake rotors. This is like last few days. And when I got the truck back, because they replaced the brake rotors, they have to bleed the brake lines, and they hadn't refilled the master cylinder. So the brake warning light was on when I got in the car. And when I started the car, it wouldn't start, even though my battery was 2 weeks old, because the mechanic had not turned the key all the way to the off position. They turned it to right before the exhaust off position, and the key will come out at that point. But I guess the radio was on, and it just drained the brand new battery, which took like 2 days on the charger to charge. They weren't thorough, but they're a great shop, so I'll let him slide. Okay, so from Tyler writes, how does one begin to become handy? What do you fix and what do you make? And I answered this in the messages on the Patreon. Someone else asked in the private messages. And I think the thing is, before you first of all, give up on devices. Forget devices, iPads, iMacs, all that stuff. Forget it. You're never fixing any of that stuff. Throw it away and get a new one. But with mechanical stuff, the older it is, basically, the more straightforward and easier it is to fix to a certain degree. And before you throw something away, just take it apart and look at it. Something breaks and you're about to throw it away, take it apart and look at it. and see if you can diagnose what's wrong with it. You don't even have to try to fix it. Just see if you can look in there and see, then that looks off or so forth. And that's sort of the beginning. I mean, I've started at such a young age that now it's a very strong intuitive force. And it's also almost a bad habit because sometimes I'll spend time like tweaking and fixing something when it's like, whoa, 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 just throw that you're spending thousands of dollars in man hours, with, wasting your time on this thing just to get another one. Um, um, and it says, what do you fix? I guess I just answered that. Oh, and you have to have tools. I've done some tool episodes on the YouTube channel, but you absolutely positively cannot buy cheap tools. You're ruining your life because tools are to fix broken things. Okay. You buy a cheap tool, you've got a broken thing that you're trying to use to fix a broken thing. And tools are quite inexpensive, especially like the cost of your iPhone that you replace every 2 years or year or whatever. That's like 10 top-notch quality tools, including power tools. Like a great power drill is $100 that comes with 2 batteries. Nice German little screwdrivers. Buy them one at a time. Do not buy a gigantic tool set. 500,000 piece tool set. 17.9. No, like when I go to Japan, I go into the hardware stores and just find tiny little beautiful. I'm trying to look for something. There's a particular screwdriver I have in my mind, like precision screwdrivers. There's 3 kinds of Phillips screw. There's 3 major Phillips screw bits. You should know that. There's the 1, the 2, and the 3. And the 1 is like little electronics. They go smaller and bigger, but the 1 is little electronics, and the 3 is like snowboard bindings, like big screws. But yeah, take things apart. Learn how to take things apart. And if you want to really dive in, buy some old vehicle and just fall in love with it and go through like the pain of I'm keeping this thing on the road no matter what. And you'll just learn everything because everything's going to break. Um, so Ethan, a lot of people suggest this are like, hey, you could really pick up your monetization game if you sold more stuff. And I do realize that, but I'm also at this like level where I'm not big enough I don't have like enough subscribers and views and so forth to have someone assist me, nor can I really afford someone to assist me with that, like to make the actual prototype or to even do the idea and then have a team kind of iterate prototypes for like, I guess, posters and zines and we sell shirts and stuff on the merch page. But I think that'll eventually happen. Also, I don't want to sell just throwaway stuff. I want to sell kind of precious um artifacts. So yeah, I realize that, but it's like I'm not going to eat into my precious video making time. I can't make anything in less than a day. Um, whether it's a physical item or whatever, I can't make anything worthwhile for in less than a day. And that's 20% of my YouTube video making time is one day. And then he asked if I know about Jimmy DiResta, and I didn't know the name, but then I Wikipedia'd it, and he has this show called Making Fun that I've watched with excellent idea for a show. Like little kids come up with crazy ideas, like a giant sneaker car that shoots basketballs or something like this. And he and his team, like in a week or whatever, like just fashion this thing together, and he insists that it works once, and it's just fantastic, and he has a really cool space. Uh, it's on Netflix, that show, Making Fun. Um, oh, this is a great question. This is a good one. So Grady asks, how did I get past gear acquisition syndrome? So a lot of people, um, I don't know how to say this. A lot of people are more technicians than they are like creators, and they don't know it, but the technical equipment that they fall in love with sort of tricks them into thinking that they are a artist, or they're a director, or they're a what have you. Whereas maybe you're just a technician. Maybe that's what your calling is, and it's handier to be a technician. It's much easier to get work. There's it seems like there's fewer competent technicians than there are like professional creative people, although that's kind of weird. Because there's so many professional creative people. And so for me, I don't really know that that was ever an issue. I've always just kind of acquired whatever the minimum equipment to achieve, the technical standard that I've had. And, you know, my brother Casey, on the other hand, he's in love with it all. He just loves the gadgetry of it. And he's nothing's going to stop him from making his well, besides extreme wealth, almost nothing will stop him from making his videos and his stuff. So he, would make videos about or tangentially about equipment or feature equipment in his videos. But I had another point that I was going to make. Equipment standard. Oh, I was watching this great basketball movie called Hustle with Adam Sandler. And there's a sequence in it where Sandler's character's daughter is shooting with a Canon DSLR. She's shooting video for like a clinic for Sandler, so that his like player, he plays like a basketball coach. So his player can watch himself on video and see like his technique for himself. And when they cut to her footage that I'm pretty sure was shot on a DSLR on the camera she showed him, then it doesn't, even on my big, like whatever, 60-inch or however big it is, flat screen TV, it doesn't look that much different than the like whatever red dragon, or what's the other one? The Alexa, the Ari Alexa, whatever that like incredible $1 million setup they used to shoot the actual movie. When they cut to the kids' $1,500 camera footage, doesn't look that different. And I gotta say, better is I don't know. I don't know which one is better. It used to make an enormous difference. Like if there was video or film, and then it would cut to, I'm sorry, if you were watching a film, like there's a movie called American Beauty that came out in late 90s or early 2000s, and one of the characters is like a video artist with a little Sony PD-100 or a PC-1 maybe. And when they cut to his footage, it is like night and day. Or when you see me cut from high def footage, or it's not called high def, what's it called? 4K footage to like old video camera footage or old um, point and shoot footage. It is night and day. But now with the 4K stuff, it's, um, I thought it was 3.6 million crystals of information in a 35 millimeter frame. Like that's the resolution because that's how big the on the film emulsion, that's how big the crystals are. That there's 3.6 million. So 4K is that 4 million? I can't remember, but I'm thinking that 4K is actually higher resolution than 35 millimeter Academy film. And that's why when you watch a lot of these old films that have been transferred, no, I'm sorry. That's when you watch a lot of new movies, you can see the makeup. It really, really stands out. And then it also has this effect with the new equipment that it looks too real. Like you're just looking at a movie set and you're just looking at actors and it's just too real. But that might also be our perception because we've watched so much real stuff on YouTube and on social media. But yeah, equipment. How do you stop it? It's just get the minimum and easiest stuff. And I don't like it at all. I don't like learning new equipment. I don't like changing my system and my organization. And I don't like having to keep track of extra cards and having a new system for backing up extra cards. I kind of dread it. Um, but, it's a lot of it is just get yourself in debt and make yourself be dependent on getting your work to pay you. And, then then you're just gonna be focused on getting your work done. Um, so I guess how did I ignore that and start getting it was the other way around. It was like I really wanted to transfer all the VHS tapes. I wanted to edit them all, and what was the cheapest pathway to getting that done? And it was a Sony TRV-9 video camera plugged into a VCR, play the VHS tapes, digitize them onto mini DV tape, and then import digitally into an iMac DV the VHS footage, and then it's digital and you can edit it. And just kind of incrementally went from there. Oh, and once you reach a certain level, probably a level I've never achieved, but on occasion, I've I've had access to professionals. You're just gonna be with technicians who are way better than you probably, who know how to use the Alexa and know how to use the Red Dragon and know all the prime lenses, and maybe you are that person. And on a film shoot, like on a real professional film shoot, generally speaking, the crew, like the smartest person, the one that it's all resting on, the one who's just so dialed in is generally speaking the cinematographer. The cinematographer is generally speaking the strongest link. Um, okay. Oh, this is another great one. Vladimir asked, "What are my thoughts about fear?" um, so my thoughts about everyone has fear. Everyone has fear of things. Brave people, um, generally speaking, are able to do scary things in the face of fear, but they still feel it. Now, I know that they have done experiments and bred rats like brave rats. So there is a genetic component to bravery and fear, but I don't know to what extent. Um, and there's some famous quotation from some famous behavioral psychologist, and they asked this person, "What's more important, nature or nurture?" And his response was, "Well, what's the most important dimension on a soccer field, the length or the width?" And the idea was that they're interdependent and you can't isolate. I mean, to some extent. So fear is, you learn to distinguish what is wisdom fear and what is like cowardice fear. So, like, how good of a snowboarder are you before you go over that 60-foot mandatory gap tabletop jump? Like, are you good enough to do it, but you're afraid to do it? Or are you afraid to do it because you're not good enough to do it and you're gonna break ribs, femur, you might get killed doing it. So there's that with the physical fear, but fear of like failure, if you have that and you let it stop you, then you are doomed. You're doomed. Quit. Just do the easy thing because you're doomed. Because the failure is I heard Mike, not Michael Saylor, some other Bitcoin guy say that pain is information. Failure is just you're just learning. You're just like when you have a difficult project in front of you sort of get used to the process. Like when you take by the time you're done with step one and you failed, oh, I know how hard this is going to be. And so, yeah, there's all the different kinds of fear, but you have to really develop your bravery. I think with children, you have to be very careful not to put your fear on them and never say things like, you're going to fall. Get down from there. You're going to fall. Do not ever say that to children. But yeah, I really think it's just, it's in that movie, Four Kings at the end, or maybe it's in the middle. George Clooney says, you do the thing that you're scared shitless to do, and the bravery comes afterward, not the other way around. It's also kind of an act of faith, like working in fear. And another thing, because I'm old, and old people are generally unforgiving. Like I don't really accept this like anxiety disorder stuff. Like people like, okay, if you have anxiety, first of all, keep it to yourself. All right. Second, we all have anxiety. And third, it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean you don't have to do the thing that you have anxiety about. It doesn't mean that you get special help because you have anxiety about it. I don't know. I don't know enough about it. I don't know enough about the extent. Maybe your soul, if you have it, is trying to tell you something. Maybe your subconscious is trying to tell you something, but I don't know. I don't really know. I just feel like Gen X, man, we weren't allowed to be, it just wasn't an excuse. It was something that was really shamed, not doing something because of fear. Um, TV shows or movies that I'm into at the moment. Well, I just said that one, Hustle, by that I can't remember who the director was, but it's an Adam Sandler basketball movie. I really like that. Um, I'm not having good luck with the stuff, with the streaming, with the series, and I can't really get into series if they're not finite, if they're not like limited series, if they just go on and on and on. I think people just, first of all, I can't follow the plot, I can't follow all the story, and the creators tend to just keep leveraging the little tricks that were successful. And the reason they were successful is because they were original and they were surprises. And the writing gets weak. And then I think everybody, once you get renewed, a lot of the people who work on the projects on these series, they just get rich and they get lazy and they don't work as hard. It's the same thing with everything. But let me think. I just subscribed to the Criterion Collection, or the Criterion Channel, which is like a streamer. And I watched Ratcatcher by Lynn Ramsey. It's such a great masterpiece. It's her first film, 1999. I don't know. Of course, I'll think of 5 things after this is over, but that's what I'm thinking so far. This one's a difficult question. Devin, Oh, so Bara asked me who the movies that I like. Devin asked me who inspires me who might not inspire others. And I wonder if that's like who's like sort of a bad person or like a or is it someone that's unknown or it's someone that oh I think what it means is do I have unusual sources of inspiration? Let me think. I don't know. It's little things. It's like little things. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. And I think probably if they inspire me, they probably inspire other people, right? So I don't know, but that's a good question. And then skip underscore Andy or Anday asked me how many mics do I rip on the daily, which is probably some quotation from like a Beastie Boys or a hip hop song or something. And I don't know what that means, but I have this mic. I have the Shure SMB70 or I can't remember what it's called. I have this Audio Technica thing that I almost never use. But I used to be my only like studio mic. And then I have a little Tascam, like $200 recorder that you put in your pocket. It's got a little wire. And then I have a Zoom mic that you can control. It's a lavalier with a little box that you can control with your phone that I've never used. I bought for a project, but I ended up not using it. And then there's these Rode mics that I've heard about that are, I think they're transmitters, recorders, and microphones all in the same little box, and they clip to your shirt. I might get those. I might get that because it automatically, your iPhone video camera automatically syncs with it and it like transmits to the iPhone. So the iPhone becomes a receiver. So you don't have to sync afterwards, I believe. That's the kind of like back to the gear question. That's the kind of like innovation that's going to save so much time that it's almost undeniable because just that keeping track of the just syncing it and keeping track of the data and making sure it goes together and copying it from the card to the machine but if it's just written on there, that's the kind of innovation that's worth adopting. And plus I think everything's now gear now is so effing cheap. Those are probably $100 or $200 or something. Um, okay. Oh, and I also like this question from David. What is my relationship with my inner voice like? All right, so this is how I understand it. So you have two voices, okay? You have what's probably your subconscious voice, which is very, very quiet. And then you have your ego, which is the loud voice. And the subconscious voice, it's hard to explain how quiet this voice is, but the subconscious voice is the one that goes back up the work file before you go pick the kid up. And that's all it says. And it says it once and that's it. And then the ego is like, you got these solid state hard drives. You've never lost a work file ever. The Final Cut Pro backs it up automatically. You only have 10 minutes to get to the school. You don't need to back it up. It's ridiculous. You've been backing it up every single Friday or every single day you're working on these things. You've been backing them up, backing them up. You've never had a failure. Just go. Just go. You don't have time for this. And depending on my like serenity, I will have the skill and the wherewithal and the conditioning to listen to the very quiet voice the subconscious voice, and disregard the ego voice. And the way I achieve that serenity is like all the AA stuff, and especially meditation, 20 minutes of meditation in the morning and exercise. Um, and the ego is there. I mean, we didn't evolve into having an ego for no reason whatsoever. It is helpful, especially in the Western world. Because if you're just like, no, I'm just going to be at one with nature and watch this butterfly for a while, pff, you're going to get eaten alive, probably literally in the olden days and then figuratively now. Because, man, this Western world, you got to get out there and fight to stay alive. And then, is my candor with myself different than with others? So, of course, I'm much harder on myself than I would be on others. And I especially drive myself crazy when I make very foolish errors within an easy task that cost me dearly. But again, if my serenity is sort of in check, then that happens less and less often. Um, okay, so now I'm going to go into the comments questions. Oh yeah, repair. You can repair your devices. Someone in here said there's plenty of. Uh, oh, Joey said there's plenty of good repair shops for devices. Throwing them away isn't the answer. And my son threw our brand new um like pro iPad into the bathtub, and I use it to make music. And it was all Apple voided warranty stuff. So I brought it to like a shop in town. I have to actually call them today. Um, Charlie Munn said, as of late, before I venture back to New York City to continue my purpose of being an artist, I feel surrounded in self doubt. How does one move through this doubt? Just work. That's my answer to everything. Just work. Just keep yourself very busy and get yourself in over your head and fight your way out of it. Um, what are your thoughts on Adam Savage's rule of buying cheap tools? The ones that break the most, you then buy an expensive version of them. What? What are your thoughts on Adam Savage's rule of buying cheap tools, and the ones that break the most, you then buy an expensive version of them? No. There's an expression, cry once. Just buy the expensive one and eat it. What if it breaks? What if it breaks and it's like the $75,000 day? If you can screw and it all comes down to that thing being able to screw in, and it's all stripped and busted because you bought the cheap one. No way. Um, Although his scale might be a lot different than ours. He might be talking about the cheap one being the $75 screwdriver versus the $1,000 like German precision screwdriver. He might be on a completely different scale. You know, I'm talking about like 100 tool set for $29.99. I'm talking about that stuff. It's not even made out of it's made out of like particle steel. Um, this is a good question. Josh Ward, what zine have you not done yet that you really owe it to yourself to do? So I think I gotta do a zine. called? God, I have a list of them. Let me go look. Yeah, there's a few on here. I'd like to do one, I think, like YouTube versus cinema from the maker's point of view. I think that would be because I think, we're in this like overlap era where, if you're young and you're going into this moving image industry, you're kind of at a fork in the road. And the real temptation and the draw is cinema, because the reason you want, probably, unless you're really young, the reason you want to do this stuff is because you saw the Spielberg movies or whatever, the Harry Potter movies or something, and like that feeling, that like incredible immersion into those worlds. You really want to be someone who has the power to do that. But people like Jimmy Donaldson, Mr. Beast, who's one of the most successful YouTubers in the world, he doesn't watch movies, doesn't know movies. He grew up, he's like 23. He's just always been obsessed with YouTube, right? And the YouTube professional path is completely different than the cinema professional path, mainly because, generally speaking, YouTube stuff is made by one person or two people. And when you watch a movie, the credits, there's sometimes 1,000 people. And it's there's almost no comparison except that you watch them on the same box. Um, but there is a very high degree of excellence with cinema, and those who spend the money right, who have the resources and do it right, it's unparalleled with in culture. It's the most incredible thing. Last week I listened to the Godfather 1 and Godfather 2. Just, it was on YouTube, but I just put in my headphones and listened to Francis Ford Coppola talking about making those, and it was the director's commentary for Godfather 1 and Godfather 2. And there's so much going on. There's the technical side. There's the dealing with the professionals and the actors side. There's there's like the budgetary side. There's and then there's, he's just he's just on, for Godfather 1, he's just on the verge of being fired like almost every day. Like, it's like day by day, he's keeping his job because nobody wanted him to make the damn movie. And YouTube's kind of the opposite of that. Like, the only person who's gonna fire you is you, and you have Coppola is, I don't know how he is able to maintain his standard, or I don't know what is connecting him to what the audience is going to like. I don't know how he does that, but how he did it, but it was basically just hunch. I'm going to make this, because it was a revolutionary movie at the time. I'm going to make this movie, and and it's $6 million or something like this. Is that right? It was very cheap. When you hear the budget, you're like, oh my God, it was so cheap, because he has like the independent filmmaker brain. And Brando kind of got ripped off on it. And the stars in it weren't giant stars yet. It made them stars. How is he? ha- but how does he have any idea whether or not this is going to be a hit? How is he convincing these people to give him these executives to give him millions of dollars because they want their investment back? They want to make money on this thing. With what? What is he? He's just no. This is like a really good movie about the Italian Americans. It's gonna make you're gonna get your money. Like whereas with YouTube, it's like you could put that movie on YouTube and it gets 50,000 views. Uh, if you were to release it now, but you have this direct data that tells you whether you're good or not. It tells you whether you're connecting or not. And I think the YouTube is better because its connection keeps you in the game versus approval keeping you in the game. So, like, if you're an actor and you want to be like a Hollywood actor, right? You're just being dependent on someone choosing you. You ding. Um, but with YouTube, people are going to choose you based on how well they connect with you. And there's a huge difference between those two things. And it's also the volume, like one person, three people in Hollywood or in that business are going to choose you and change your life. Whereas with the YouTube thing, plus you get so many tries with the YouTube thing. You could just keep going for years and years and years, nothing, 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 and then ding. Whereas with the, auditioning stuff, you're just going to be trying to get a chance to try over and over and over again. You're going to get your chance. Like, that's it. Mm. But yeah, I'd like to do a zine about YouTube versus cinema. Because, some of my friends, a lot of them were very successful in cinema. And that was my original ambition, but it wasn't in the cards for me. And these people, they majored in film too. They went to film schools, and the ones who did made it, the ones who got to make feature films with real movie stars. And they put in the work of writing those however many screenplays that were terrible, and then the one that was good, and then getting the talent to be interested in it. And I never did, and I don't think I ever will. And so I think about it a lot, but I also think this era is going to be remembered for the stuff that happened on YouTube, and that's what's relevant. And cinema was the last era. Was the from maybe 100 years from its invention until a couple decades ago, and now it's spectacular. It's lots of spectacle, but I don't know that it has the real connection, and it doesn't have broad connection, I don't think, anymore. Okay, what's the next one? What motorcycle would you recommend for a first-time rider living in the city? I like the idea of adventure bikes, but I love cafe racers. Depends on the city. City's kind of broad. Like New York City is completely different than, well, Los Angeles. But I would recommend a Yamaha TW200 almost any year. Just make sure that the engine has power when you ride it. Make sure it can go 65. You can get a brand new one, and then I think they started making them in '88, and it's basically the same bike, but now they have hydraulic disc brakes, and they might have fuel injection now, and it's probably worth it to get a fuel injected bike. And the reason I recommend that is because it has gigantic tires that are pretty much idiot proof. You can mow over anything and you'll be fine. It's not too heavy. The seat's low. Um, it'll do 65 almost under any circumstances. I mean, it'll take a while to get there, and that engine is at full tilt when you're going 65. But I've done like the Angeles Crest on a TW 200, like super steep, gigantic mountains. Um, freeways on the around Los Angeles. I first had one in Manhattan, and it was like a fantastic interborough bike because the streets in America are horrible. They're really bad, especially in the cities. I drove from the Bronx down to Oaxaca, and the worst streets on the entire trip were the streets in the Bronx, where the truck was parked. I had that garage where I parked the truck, and that TW 200 little like kind of just it's a trail bike. It just eats all the bumps up and yeah, and it's low and you can ride double on it if you really need to. Cafe racers are kind of hard to ride because you're lying down on them. They have clip on. I think what defines a cafe racer is that it has clip on handlebars that clip on to they clip between like the two triple clamps on the top of the fork. So you're kind of lying on the gas tank, and they were sort of developed for the Riviera. The and the Riviera is kind of like Los Angeles in that you're going from altitude right down to the Mediterranean, and so they were designed for, riding up into those mountains and then down into the little towns and basically going from like little cafe to cafe. That's why they call them cafe racers. They're sort of like track bikes, but they're not really city bikes. They're not city bikes. You want to split lanes and get around side view mirrors and park, and you kind of have to be upright to see what's going on. You're not like in a tuck. So that's what I like. But yeah, I get the draw of a beautiful cafe racer. Have you ever had to cut something you loved out of your life that was a distraction from progressing in your life? Yes. Drugs and alcohol, that's for sure. Um, let's see, what else? I mean, I just feel like it's unending sacrifice. It's just to make a living at this thing, just to be able to like make a living at making things from scratch. It's a real sacrifice. Like, I think the last time I went snowboarding was in 2018, like the winter on the beginning side of 2018. What's that? 4 years ago. And man, I think that snowboarding is probably my favorite thing to do more than anything. It's probably the most like, to me, it's sacred. It's so beautiful, especially when you get really lucky and maybe you're in, some incredible place like Jackson Hole, Wyoming or Aspen, Colorado, and you get one of those storms in the middle of the week where the people from that can't get into the place where you are, and you just sort of have the whole mountain yourself. I remember once it was in Jackson Hole. I was on the first gondola of the day, and I was also the first gondola to get put people on and bring to the top of the mountain. I was in that gondola, and then I was in the last gondola. The last after this one, boom, no more. Same day. That'll never happen again. But the last time I went, I was 43 years old and or 42 years old, and like my back was in severe pain afterwards from leaning over and doing up the bindings, and just I was in really bad shape. And at the same time, I'm like better than like just a better rider than I've ever been. And just that is a sport you have to be. either young without any responsibilities, or it's just so expensive. I mean, it's $200 a day for one lift ticket, and then a weekend will be 5 grand if you're going to go up there with your family just after everything. The hotels in those places are really expensive. And like, I'm not interested in doing really anything on the cheap anymore, unless in intrinsically the activity is on the cheap activity, like hiking, like is a cheap activity. But I'm not interested in doing expensive activities like snowboarding on the cheap. Like I don't know, I'm too old. But that's something that I've sacrificed. And also sometimes depending on how broke I get, like my motorcycles, it's a privilege for me. And when I go broke, it's the first thing that gets cut out of my life is the motorcycles. And I remember that when I had that studio in the Bronx, my BMW just deteriorated. I kept it inside, but it was just so much stuff was broken with it. I had done the Baja stuff with it and had kind of and moved out, and I lived in LA with it. And it was just, I was kind of neglected, and all this stuff, like the subframe was broken, all this stuff. And then as I could afford it, I'd fix little things here and there and there and there. And so there's two activities. A lot of social stuff, a lot of parties, missing a lot of family stuff that I should not miss. Um, you know, weddings, bar mitzvahs, funerals, like real painful shit that makes you look like a fucking asshole if you don't go. And just either by virtue of the opportunity that I had, I just could not say no to, or I'm just, again, just broke, can't afford the ticket, can't afford to fly. Um, uh, what else? I mean, what else is there? I don't know. Yeah, a lot. There's a lot of little sacrifices. But, if it's your career, it's what's going to get you resources to do anything. So might as well just, like, I was having a conversation with Isabel a couple days ago, and it's just like, if I never get to fly anywhere again, um, I don't care. But if I fly somewhere again, I want to fly business class or nothing else. And of course, emergencies, funerals, that kind of stuff is, I got to fly whatever I can afford. And that jump from coach to business is tenfold. I was looking to fly to see my father on the East Coast, and the tickets are $300 for, one way for coach, and $3,000 for Mint for JetBlue Mint. And I know in the comments people are like, you can find 27.99. You can find Delta. That's what my fucking brother Dean said. 2,500, dude. Delta. Okay, fine. Eightfold different. um, and I'm just trying to get there. Having said that, overland travel, I'll drive to Tierra del Fuego, and I'll go through all that misery and blah blah blah. But I'm gonna dot the trip with nice, awesome hotels. But they're cheaper in South America. Overland, I'll go anywhere because I love the car and I hate the airplane process. The planes are fine. Um, so that's a self-imposed sacrifice, because it's like, no, you're not successful enough to fly to Europe. You're not successful enough to whatever. And all of the Asian trips I've ever taken, they've all been for work. So I've only flown to Asia business class. It's fantastic. And I'm like, Asia is not worth the coach class trip to get there. I'll just stay here and keep working until I can afford the business class trip. And now I got a family. So it's like triple times 3. So it's like triple times 10. So it's like 30-fold more expensive. But, what can you do? Charlie Munn asks, Can you speak on love and partnership with another person and its relation to your work? Um, it's very easy to be unfair, and it's very easy to ask or to demand of the other person that they too sacrifice in the manner that you have sacrificed. And it's also within your mind, within my mind, I, I have this mindset of like, no matter what happens, I have to fucking work. No matter what happens, and it's, you know, this, the, I don't know what decisions people involved with. I don't know what decisions they're going to make, but I am going to have to work no matter what. If she leaves me or whatever, I'm not talking about Isabel. I'm just talking about all of them. If she leaves me, I still have to work. And there's a line there somewhere where you can't it's you have to sort of protect them from your potential to just work the whole relationship away and not have any relationship at all. And I'm in there like right now, but I'm starting to come out of it. I'm starting to like with the because of you guys, the patrons and other things, it's starting to relieve me and I'll find some time. But yeah, it's incredibly difficult. This is why I discourage people from doing this as like a profession. Like, don't do it. Just get a job at Microsoft or whatever. Just don't. It's too hard. It's like if you can do something else, do something else because this is it's it's so uncertain. Mm. Oh, I just was reading something good and then I moved it. What is your view on dogs? I love dogs as much as everyone, but nobody cares about your dog. Find it really annoying that when people, even famous people, like do posts like just sitting with Scratchy here, and I just thought you guys might want to. We don't give a shit. Also, oh my god, I'll alienate people if I go too much with this. There's a dog on my run, and there's a leash law in the park where I run. There's tons of dogs on my run all the time. None of them bother me. None of them. Um, but there's this one badly behaved. It's like it looks like it's maybe a Samoyed and golden retriever mix. It's like a big white long-haired dog and it's almost too big for the owner to handle. Like she can barely restrain this thing and it tries to bite me and it's extremely aggressive around me. And when I see this woman's car in the parking lot, I get like one of those adrenaline dumps and it wears me out. It's like halfway through my run. And um so I think it was last week. I was running. She used to keep it off of a leash and then like chase it and grab it by the collar and then it's been on a leash for a while. And then last week um I was running, I ran by her and she had it on the leash, like restraining it with all of her might, and it was trying to get me. And then I ran up the hill, and I came back, and there was the dog, not on a leash, owner nowhere. And so the dog starts running. No, I start running towards the dog, and the dog starts like barking and running towards me, and I just did the like, "Ah! Ah!" And I was just like flinching and like chasing it down, and it would just turn and run away a little bit, and then it would turn and face me, and then I'd do it again, and it'd turn and it faced me. And I knew I couldn't just run because then it would be its like prey instinct would take over and it would just run after me. And also, I'm not putting my back to this dog either. So I had to just like, I was able to like get it to turn so that I was going back towards where I thought the owner was. And I had my headphones in the whole time. I'm not listening to anyone. I can't hear anyone. I have my whatever these Raycon things in. I'm listening to a podcast. And the owner comes out and she's trying to get it, but it's a dog. It's hard to, she's trying to catch it. And then I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything. And then when she finally caught it, I said, if that, I've had multiple interactions with this woman. I said, if that dog bites me, I'm going to kill it. And I mean it. And I will kill that dog. But, dogs, I think they're specific for specific needs. I think they're great for security. I think they're great if you have a big piece of land or big piece of property. I don't really understand having a dog in a place like New York City. Like, what dog wants that life? um, and but I've known some dogs that I've loved my whole life. I've never owned one, but um, yeah, that's my thing. I don't have like the romantic, although the screenplay I wrote was about a dog. So, um, I gotta go. I gotta cut this off at 10. Um, but I finished my video, this week's video. It should be up later today, and I think I'm gonna switch soon to publishing them on Mondays because I'll have more time to focus on the Patreon. And Monday, my videos and my perform better if they're released earlier in the week, or I think just YouTube in general. If you release a video earlier in the week, it just does better in the viewer metrics and so forth. So, uh, all right, everybody, have a great weekend and see you real soon. Goodbye.